Hello, hello, brothers and sisters. Welcome to our show titled Speak of Africa. For the show of today, I am Prince Ojong, your host. If this is the first time you're watching this show is intended to explain Africa to the world. For the show of today, our focus is South Africa. For many weeks now, people have been complaining about xenophobic violence in South Africa. When Nelson Mandela became president of South Africa in 1994, he gave birth to a new nation, a miracle. We said this was a rainbow nation. Desmond Tutu also agreed with Nelson Mandela that they were building a new nation, which was a miracle. This nation was a paradise. As a paradise, it attracted a lot of people from all over the world. Investors, workers, foreigners, all of them flocked to South Africa to participate in paradise. This was 1994. Today is 2026. South Africa is dealing with xenophobic violence. So what happened? Who killed the dream of South Africa's paradise? Who did it? That's what this show is about. Unlike other shows, we're not just going to look at things on the surface. We're going to take it just like a detective story. We're going to go into the details. We'll peel the onion layers until we get to the facts. This is what we'll do on this show. There's going to be no propaganda. We're going to take you step by step until we get to the crime. Who committed the crime? Have they been punished? Are they scotch-free? You're going to know. So stay tuned. So let's go. So far, when you look at a lot of what is happening in the news, you see the violence. A lot of countries are transporting their citizens back home. Nigeria, as an example, you can see pictures of Nigerians returning home. Some are crying. Similarly, you can see pictures of Ghanaians returning home. But even the frontline states, Botswana, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, you see their citizens running away from South Africa because of what? The deadline. June 30th, 2026 is the deadline. Leave or return in a coffin. That's the warning. And this warning initially sounded like a mild warning, but later on it had death consequences because the vigilantes were really going house to house, searching for foreigners. They were converting an audit of citizenship. If you are not a citizen, you are told to leave before June 30th, and you are let known if you don't leave before June 30th, you return to your country in a coffin. And these vigilantes were really serious. They were not joking. They were serious because they fulfilled some of the threats by killing a lot of foreigners. When this happened, your average foreigner who thought this was a joke or a movie knew that things are serious. So they started taking matters seriously. When you look at Musina camp, where a lot of the foreigners are being processed, then returned to their homes, especially those from Zimbabwe, you can see that even the government is participating. What you don't see, you see the crowds marching on the streets, march and march, Operation Dudula, you see those, yes. But what you don't see is the action of the South African government of Cyril Ramaphosa, who is actually participating in fulfilling the dream of these vigilantes. You start asking yourself, what's the crime? Well, the crime is the death of South Africa as a rainbow nation. That's the crime. So who killed South Africa as a rainbow nation? That's what we're going to find out. And that's why you're watching the show of today. So stay tuned. Let's move to the next stage. The prime suspect. Well, as you know, a lot of the foreigners living in South Africa have become the prime suspects in this detection story. The detective, who I am, we're looking for the prime suspect. Well, for most of the South Africans, the leaders of March and March, such as Jacinta Ngobesi Zuma and others, they are blaming the foreigners for their problem. That's the blame game going on now. So the prime suspect in this detective story is that foreigners are the criminals. They are the ones who have killed the dream of rainbow nation. But is this true? We don't think so. What we see here is similar to many other countries. We can use Nazi Germany as an example. When inflation and the economy was bad in Nazi Germany, it was easy for the Germans to blame the Jews. Because this was easy. Why? Because the politicians were lighting the match. They were lighting the match so that the whole place can burn, so that foreigners can burn. But foreigners are not really the problem. We try to look at the facts. Foreigners are not really the problem. Politicians use foreigners as scapegoats. And that's what is happening in the case of South Africa. A lot of stories have covered this xenophobic violence, but a lot of time people tend to take sides. On this channel, we don't take sides. We present the facts as they are. So next, what we're going to do now is we're going to try to do some form of investigation. Just like a detective. We've done our investigation. Then now you're asking ourselves, we've seen the corpse. The corpse of the nation is lying in front of us. So who killed the South African dream? Who is the killer? Well, we're still doing our investigation. But first, when you see these foreigners, this is like a red herring. These foreigners are not really the killers of the South African dream. They are not. They are just bearing the consequences, the way it happens in many other countries. Even in the United States today, you begin to see Donald Trump is using foreigners as America's problem. So it's not the first time that political leaders tend to use foreigners as scapegoats. In this particular example, we've gotten people who have actually interviewed Jacinta Ngobesi Zuma. Who is the problem? The foreigners are not really the problem. The problems have to do with the real killers. You may not know who the killers are, but you know the scapegoats. You know the suspects. So what is really happening? You can see the signs. The signs are there. High unemployment. Unemployment in South Africa has become more than 33%. So this is untenable. In South Africa, you have a tale of two nations. Even though apartheid was killed in 1994, the economic structures remain the same. The social structures for apartheid remain the same. If you want to see a perfect example, is the town of Orania. We have a lot of pictures. We did the research of the town of Orania. Even though apartheid was killed, apartheid is still alive in South Africa. When the people are complaining about poor services, the rich folks are not complaining. Because what they do, they build self-reliant communities. So if the public system is not working, they have their system that are working. If there's blackouts in South Africa, no lights, they don't have a problem because they have their generators, they have their solar panels. It is the poor who are suffering, and they are the ones mourning the death of South Africa. So you cannot blame them because they are just uneducated. They are just being manipulated. That's what is happening. When you look at your average South African black person, he's just manipulated. He doesn't really understand what he's dealing with. So sometimes when I look at what is happening in South Africa, it looks like a movie. It looks like a revenge tragedy. The Spanish tragedy, Hamlet, those are two examples of revenge tragedies that most people know. So when you look at what is happening in South Africa, it really resembles that. We have a corpse. Now we're looking for who killed this person. The next thing that is driving the plot now is we have to revenge the killing of the South African dream. Now you want to revenge. So the politicians are very clever. So look at the Department of Home Affairs. When you go to the Department of Home Affairs, there's a whole lot of data. It's true. Immigration is a problem in many societies. In the United States, immigration is a problem. In South Africa, the average citizen is not only concerned with legal immigration. They are concerned with both. Whether you are legal or you are illegal, so long as you are a foreigner, they want you to leave. So that's the problem in the case of South Africa. They don't really care whether you have the papers, you have the right to work in South Africa. They just want all foreigners to leave. Because the message publicized by most of these vigilante leaders is that foreigners are the core problem. That's why they are having problems. That's why the services are not good. You look at the healthcare services, electricity, water, the services are bad. So you ask yourself, why are the services so bad? Why can the leaders not do a good job? But the leaders are trying to deflect from their own unkept promises. That's what you need to understand in the tragedy of South Africa. We have two nations. Before 1994, we had two nations. I don't want to go far back to the founding of South Africa as a nation. But in 1948, when the National Party created the first South Africa, you had the formalization of apartheid laws. Apartheid laws means blacks and whites have to live separately. Blacks have their townships, Soweto and the other places, whereas the white people had their Orania. Communities, Afrikaner communities, where the whites lived in peace, nobody bothered them. You had all the manicured lawns, nice houses. By contrast, you had the ghettos, where the black people live. Okay? So that's what we see, a tragic tale of two nations. We thought apartheid was dismantled after 1994. No, that's a mistake many people make. Political apartheid was dismantled and was killed and was buried. But economic apartheid was never dismantled. Social apartheid was never dismantled. That's the reality of the situation in South Africa. Now we've come to the real mystery, and we're going to expose who the killers are. When you look at the real mystery, even the vigilante leaders don't really understand the real mystery of the crime. The crime, actually, we have to blame the politicians. And when we start blaming the politicians, we start with the ANC, African National Congress. This was a party that was created in 1912 to fight for the liberation of the black folks in South Africa. Later, in 1994, when Nelson Mandela became president, this was the party that led him to freedom and to the presidency. The hope of the people was that now that a black person has become president, there has been a transition from white minority rule to black majority rule. So this happened on paper according to the Constitution. Political apartheid now was dismantled, was buried, but economic apartheid remained intact. Social apartheid remained intact. And that's the tragedy of South Africa that we need to understand. Okay? When you want to understand who are the killers of South Africa, you need to look at the governments that were presided by the ANC party. First, Nelson Mandela. He came in, after he was released from prison in 1990, he negotiated a settlement with the white minority folks, F.W. de Klerk. They led a very good negotiation, but this negotiation was flawed. If I were handling this negotiation, I would have decided to kill apartheid politically, socially, and economically. But Nelson Mandela, as good as he was, he has his own limitations. He was able to succeed in killing apartheid only politically. Economic power remained in white hands. Social power remained in white hands. So the black people were limited to what they could do. They could not get jobs. They could not get into good schools. All these schools were owned by white people. So the white people controlled them. All the economy was controlled by the minority white folks. And which is why they talk about white capitalism. Capitalism because the white people control the means of production. They own the factors of production and they control the means of production. So the black folks were just workers. When you look at Marxism, when they talk about the Communist Manifesto and Das Kapital, you look at two different societies. You have the black society, poor black society, You had a rich society, white rich society. So when you look at South Africa, I can actually use the metaphor of South Africa is a country with one flag, but they have two peoples. It's like you have two rivers. South Africa is a bridge over two troubled waters. The two troubled waters are the black folks and the white folks. So that's the metaphor I can use for you to understand the problem in South Africa. Now, when we start looking at the economic factors that are creating problems, there are really a lot of economic problems. Unemployment, 33%, that's huge. Utilities, water, electricity, the people cannot afford. They are not available. Social services, healthcare systems, they are all collapsing. But the white people don't have a problem. Like when you look at the people in Orania, they provide these services for just a small group of people who are white. And before you become a member of that community, you have to apply and be admitted. And when you look at this community, it is 100% white. I was really shocked when I did a little research. I found out that even Nelson Mandela in 1995 visited Orania. I saw pictures of Nelson Mandela visiting Orania. Even today, Orania remains an Afrikaner society. I have a lot of pictures which I'm sharing with you of Orania. You see it. This is all white rule, like two worlds. Black people have their own world, white people have their own world, and the white world is better. They don't know about blackouts. When blackouts happen, they turn on their generators. They turn on their satellite dishes and other devices. So they are fine. Solar energy is there. It powers their stuff, so they are fine. By contrast, the black people are the ones suffering. And when you look at the problem that is happening now, this is just like an immediate reaction to a simmering problem, okay? A simmering problem. In America, for example, America is not a paradise. But you can see that in America, even though you had discrimination, but the white folks have done a better job creating opportunity for black people than in South Africa. In South Africa, the people have just been left to their own devices, and this is why the poverty is rampant. And the poverty is rampant. So the ANC, as we said a few minutes ago, have not made things easy. The ANC has unkept promises. They made a lot of promises to the people. From the liberation movement, we're going to become free and we're going to live in a society, our own country, where things will be better. But after over 32 years of ANC leadership, have the people done better? The answer is no. Which is why in 2024, the ANC was rejected at the polls. And a lot of black people did not vote for the ANC. Which is why some of the parties like Julius Malema's party, Economic Freedom Fighters Party, did not side with ANC. So then, of course, who are the culprits? Nelson Mandela was a great leader. We give him good colors. He killed apartheid politically, but he did not kill apartheid economically and socially. We're not going to crucify him for that. The next, after Nelson Mandela, came Thabo Mbeki. Thabo Mbeki was a great successor to the leadership of Mandela. He did very well. But the problem which we're facing now is Jacob Zuma. Jacob Zuma is the real killer of South Africa. If you don't know how corrupt this guy was, I will send you to do your research. Have you ever heard of the Bell Pottinger scandal? This scandal lays bare the corruption of Jacob Zuma. State capture. Jacob Zuma took over all the state resources. They became his private property, and he was sharing this with Indians, the Gupta brothers. Okay? They were taking advantage of all the resources of the country. So that's the killer of South Africa. After Jacob Zuma, the people were thinking that they would get somebody who would be a reformer, who would fight corruption. That's when they brought in Cyril Ramaphosa. But Cyril Ramaphosa may be campaigning as Mr. Clean, but his record is tainted. He's a rich person, but he has not been able to convert his riches to help your average South African. You would think that as a business person, he will be able to know how to fight economic problems. But he has been more like an Uncle Tom. He has been very conciliatory with the white folks, so he has not been bold enough to usher in the kind of changes that can create economic change in the society where wealth can flow. I'm not advocating communism, but I'm advocating the introduction of economic policies that can make social mobility and economic mobility possible in South Africa. Cyril Ramaphosa has failed, and which is why we're dealing with this problem. His failure also has to do with his underlings. He's at the top, at the state level. But when you look at the Department of Home Affairs, the department is dysfunctional. Nothing works. Even the processing of application for immigration, the process is dysfunctional. The people themselves have been telling us this is the core of the problem. Now elections are coming soon, so the politicians in South Africa want to deflect the blame. They don't want to be accountable. So they deflect now to blame foreigners. If you blame foreigners, then everything will be all right. Will it? We don't think so. So this is really a mistake. By blaming foreigners, you're making the same mistake a lot of other countries have done. Nazi Germany as an example. Stop blaming foreigners, because foreigners are not the problem. So the killers of South Africa are Jacob Zuma and Cyril Ramaphosa. So the killers are right there. You've seen the body. You did not know who the killers were. I've introduced them now to you. I've named them. Jacob Zuma and Cyril Ramaphosa. Those are the main killers of the South African Rainbow Nation. If you did not know this, I've revealed this to you. So when you watch what is happening in South Africa, you start asking a lot of questions. Does this mean black people cannot rule themselves? Why is it that the black mind, the black being loves bribery and corruption? We know that it takes two to tango. They dance with the white folks, to make crime pay, to steal from the state. We are not saying that white people are not to be blamed, but we're saying that why is it that for the first time when black people come to a place, they destroy it? Look at a country that was a developed nation in Africa. It is functioning now just like a newly independent African state. Crime, problems, bad education, bad roads, bad governance, which is the common characteristic of many of the countries that are in Africa today. South Africa has joined the club. South Africa has joined the list. It is not a failed state, but it is a state with so many problems. You will not even believe. It is a state where you have the haves and you have the have-nots. This needs to be resolved. So what do you think? You've come to watch this video. We've presented the facts to you. What do you think? How do you think the problems in South Africa should be solved? I have a lot of ideas, like a revision of the economic system, a revision of the social system, a revisit of the political system, so that opportunity can flow equally to a lot more people. So what do you think specifically? We want to hear from you. We want to hear from you. Go to the comment section and talk about it. This is a dialogue. I don't want to be talking and you're not talking. So use the comment section to express yourself so that we can get your views. These views may even be important to our brothers and sisters in South Africa. Instead of just blaming them, we need to educate them so that they should understand the problem they are facing. And look at them also as victims. The victim is not just the country that has died. The victim are the people, the black people in South Africa who are still suffering. They had a dream of a new life after apartheid. But apartheid has just become a mirage. The dream life is not there. They are still living in chains, the way they were living in the days of apartheid. So if you can watch this video, if you like it, please share the video with your friends and family so we can get more people joining the discussion. Thank you very much.
Selling a service or a product? Need buyers? Use the African Nation TV as a channel to reach many viewers. Act now and call Prince Ojong at 240-350-1131. That's 240-350-1131. Act today.